Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. This episode is sponsored by Mainstream Reiki, offering live and online Reiki classes and a membership community to help Reiki practitioners succeed and grow in their practice. Find out more at mainstreamreiki.com. Welcome back to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm Andrea Kennedy, and I have the pleasure of reintroducing you to Jean Slatter. She was on the show back in November 2023, and she is back. I am so thrilled to let you know that Jean is an accomplished author, an inspirational speaker, certified traditional naturopath, higher guidance life coach, applied kinesiologist, Reiki master, and more. Jean has helped thousands through her work, and most notably with her book, Hiring the Heavens. Jean is here with us today to teach us how to raise our TQ, Transcendent Intelligence. Jean, I am so thrilled that you said yes to come back to the show, because that episode that we did together back in November was amazing. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. I'm so glad to be back. Yeah, it was a great interview, all talking about clearing out resistances and allergies in your body, something that people don't ever think about, and simple ways to overcome that. So definitely an episode to listen to.
Oh, yeah. Mind to the body. There was so much in that episode. It was phenomenal. And so I am really super, super curious how to raise our TQ, Transcendent Intelligence. Now, what is that? That's a new term to me. Can you fill us in about that?
Oh, yeah, this is so exciting to me, because this has actually been a passion of mine now. Before I even knew that what I was doing, it's been a passion now for 25, 30 years. Well, we're familiar with your intellect quotient. That's your IQ, right? That's your intelligence, your intellectual intelligence. Then we have our EQ, which is our emotional intelligence. And there was a big book that came out a number of years ago that brought our awareness about how we all have emotional intelligence. What people don't realize is we also have a transcendent intelligence. And what that is beyond the intellect, beyond your emotions. And it taps into this resource, this higher mind, which is connected to all there is. So it includes your intuition. It includes access to your higher guidance, to your angels, to your source. And it's different than intuition in that it goes beyond intuition. So we have all been taught that when it comes to intuition, that we should just meditate and listen to that wee small voice within, and listen to our intuitive gut. Well, there's a problem with that because that says that you're able to distinguish between that and your own mind's rambling. How do you know? Was that really my intuitive voice, or was that just wishful thinking? How do I know the difference? Can I trust it? The idea that we have our answers within is true, but we can't usually get to it. And I'll explain why we can't get to it. And thus it leads us to all sorts of experiences where we say to ourselves, I can't trust this voice. That was wrong. I obviously can't trust that, and we start to become very intimidated by the idea of being intuitive. We say to ourselves, well, some people have the gift. They were just born that way, but not me, or we say, I've read lots of stories about near-death experiences and they come back and they're super intuitive. Well, I'm not wanting to go through a near-death experience. So I guess I have to count myself out. I don't have the gift. I'm not one of those people. And we tell ourselves that this is only something that a very few can do. But I'm here to tell you that each and every one of us has a transcendent intelligence, and we just need to exercise that muscle and go beyond intuition. Intuitive training is all about listening. It's about listening to that voice. What I want to show you is there's something beyond that. And that beyond is how to carry on a conversation, how to go, not only listen, but actively be involved in a conversation with your higher guidance so that you get this give and take with the universe. The universe is constantly talking to you and you are constantly talking back. And there's this whole cluing in to this mystery of your life and knowing that you have guides and angels that are showing you every step of the way what your life is about and how to access that information. And the most beautiful thing, how to verify it so that you can trust it. Because I say, yeah, this is great. Let's learn how to tap into our intuitive skills and let's learn how to conversation. But how can we trust it? How can we verify that the information we're receiving is really coming from our higher guidance? So all of those skills are what I call our transcendent intelligence. And what this conversation that we're going to have is about how we can raise our TQ, not our IQ, not our EQ, but how to raise our TQ.
I am so excited to hear you say verify, because I have a science mind, and verify, oh, that just perks up my
Yes.
ears.
Yes.
But I also have to say that this notion of having the conversation, I love that as well, because sort of like as you described this intuitive thing, it's kind of squishy. I mean, we listen, we get a nudge, maybe the universe, whispers and then it gets a little louder, but it's not verifiable. It's just that, maybe I'll do it, maybe not. And then heaven forbid that something doesn't work out. That takes our confidence way down about listening next time. And so please go on and let us know how can we have a conversation? How can we be more sure about what we're hearing?
Right. Well, let me explain about the importance, first of all, of being able to raise your TQ. And of course,
okay.
It's nothing that we're taught in school, right? All our focus is on intelligence, our IQ, right? But we all have access to it. And here's the beautiful thing for people like you and myself, left brainers are excellent at it.
Good.
Yes. Yeah, that scientific mind. What I want you to know is you actually have a leg up on what they call the right brainers, the ones that intuition comes easy to. I'll tell you what, left brainers actually have a leg up. And why is because they are very good at coming up with questions. And the quality of your question determines the quality of your answer. So they're able to look at it and dissect, is this question logical here? Can it be interpreted in other ways? How could I better ask this question? And that's something a left brainer can do that a right brainer goes, what are you talking about? So I just want you to know, take heart. I'm a very left brain person. And now, after years and years of strengthening my intuitive muscle, I would say I'm very right brain. But it took years of exercising that muscle. So that's the key, is that we have to exercise that muscle, and something we're not taught in school. But why is this important? It's important because the universe is always dropping you breadcrumbs about what your life and your journey is about. Wouldn't it be nice to understand those messages? Wouldn't it be nice to get a pass to go backstage and talk to the director and producer of your life and go, okay, why is this experience happening to me? Why do I keep doing this over and over? What's this about? You know, can you explain to me this journey? What am I trying to get from it? With strengthening that transcendent intelligence, it really is like getting a pass to go backstage and get this information. And second of all, you're going to save yourself thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean that literally, because if you have access to your transcendent intelligence, there's really no question you can't ask. And so let's just say, for an example, you got to have an implant in your tooth. You know, let's just say that you broke a tooth off and now you got to go in and have some dental work done. Guess what? Your higher intelligence knows exactly who you should go to that would help you get the most the most healthy implant in your tooth, do the best work, would be the most financially favorable to you, and that will save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Let's just say you want to buy a house and you're looking at different properties in different states. Your higher guidance knows which place you will flourish in, that you will, get find the best property then and experience the best neighbors. Your higher guidance knows all this information and can set up a match for you. Can you imagine how many thousands and thousands of dollars that would save you? So why is it important to access this in this transcendent intelligence? You get clued into what's going on in your life. And second, you're going to save yourself thousands of dollars. Otherwise, it's like trial and error. I always say there are 1,001 amazing healing modalities. Everything from Reiki to matrix energetics to acupuncture. The list goes on and on of different healing modalities out there. And here's the thing, all of them work for some of the people, some of the time, for certain issues. So how do you know what's going to work for you? Guess what? Your higher guidance knows. So if you have access to that intelligence, you could say, okay, I'm having some issues here with what seems to be gallbladder issues. What do I do? Your higher guidance can tell you where you need to start is with some acupuncture. Then after that, you need to go see your doctor. Then after that, you need to do this. And then we need to adjust your diet. Your higher guidance can give you an exact plan of what to do. If you didn't have that plan and you don't have access to higher guidance, it's a shot in the dark, right? Well, I'm going to ask my neighbor what they did, and then I'll just go that route and see if it works. And then oftentimes we spend years and years in frustration, spending thousands of dollars and getting no results. But we have totally ignored that there is an intelligence beyond this intellect that knows us better than anyone. Our higher guidance is that part of us that has had to live with us all these years, knows everything about us, knows our past lives, is privy to the information about where we're going in this life. So if we can raise our TQ, start having conversations with this higher guidance, this transcendent intelligence, we can get clued into all of that.
Well, my mind is just spinning with so many different questions. So, I have a little bit of knowledge about this just because, over the years, I've known people to use pendulums and do muscle testing and things like that. But to be quite honest, I have a little bit of, I'm going to say judgment around the muscle testing. I'm going to say, and we haven't even gotten into how we're going to have these conversations, but I don't know. I just feel like I'm going to touch on this very quickly because, again, I'm not quite sure where you're going to lead us to this, but I'm thinking, is this similar to muscle testing? I'll just put this out there. I've known some people in my life who employed muscle testing techniques, and I knew that they did not ask the right questions. And I knew that it wasn't the right move for them. I just intuitively knew. They trusted these answers that they got from muscle testing. And I mean, they changed their lives based on that. And, one case in particular I'm thinking about, it did not go well for this person at all. And so that makes me a little timid about this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And is this related to muscle testing?
It is, and it is not. It goes way beyond that.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
But because I can totally agree with you that unfortunately people are not taught how to verify. And you need to be able to do that, especially if you're talking about big life-changing situations. So let's talk about some of the impedances to being able to have accurate conversations with your higher guidance. I'll explain, first of all, how this mind works. And some of this may be review for you, I'm sure, but it needs to be kind of like, we need to understand how this mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's important to get out of your mind answers. So the first thing is that our minds have a filter on them. It's built in so that we can focus. If we get bombarded by too much stimulus, too much information coming in, our minds can't identify what it is that, we're supposed to take from this. So we have this built-in filter that focuses. For an example, if you're sitting in a noisy restaurant and you're talking with your friend, you just hear your friend talking, right? But there's all this other noise going on. Have you ever tried this experiment where you just take a moment to focus in on the conversation next to you? Do a little bit of eavesdropping. And all of a sudden you can hear, because you've intended a focus, you can hear now what they're saying. And then you go, okay, now I'm going to focus in on this conversation over here. And when you do that, now you can hear them, but you can't hear the neighbor next to you. And that is how our minds work. There was a really, really fun YouTube video, and spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you everything about it here. But it was a famous study done by a university where they had 6 people in going around and around, just kind of slowly walking around in a circle, passing a basketball back and forth between them. And they're recording this whole thing, right? And 3 of them have white T-shirts and 3 of them have black T-shirts. And they're passing this basketball back and forth as they slowly walk around in a circle. Now they had an audience looking on to observe, and they said, now count how many times the people in the white T-shirt caught the basketball. So the audience is watching and very intently counting the number of times people, the 3 participants in the white T-shirts, caught the basketball. Afterwards, the director comes in and says, after he stopped the video, he says, now, did anybody see the gorilla come onto the screen? And they're like, what gorilla? What are you talking about? So what happened is, during the time that the people were passing the basketball, a guy in a gorilla suit walks right into the middle of the screen, thumps his chest, and then walks off. And nobody sees him. Nobody sees him.
Really?
And why? Because the mind has been told what to focus on. And that's the number of times the basketball is being thrown. So they miss the gorilla altogether. So you think about that and you think, okay, what am I missing? Because my mind can only focus on certain things, on whatever the intent is. The reason that you want to get out of your mind answers is because your higher guidance saw the gorilla. Your higher guidance saw the gorilla and said, oh yeah, we saw it. And this is what you need to pay attention to. And that's where that saying, you can't see something that's right in front of your face. I mean, it happens all the time. Another reason why we have difficulty having, just figuring things out with our mind is that we see what we are expecting to see. I can remember one time I was looking for a certain cookbook, and I had a whole a cabinet of cookbooks. And in my mind, I remembered this to be about an 11 by 14 cookbook. And I remember the binder, what it looked like and what color it was. And so I searched through all my cookbooks for the title, and I knew exactly what the title was, and I couldn't find it. So then I asked a friend who was staying with me, can you see if you can find it? I know it's got to be there. Here's the name of it. Here's what it looks like. She looks for it. She can't see it. Then my son says, what are you looking for? And all I did was give him the name. And he went right to it and pulled it out. Now, he was able to pull that out because I didn't create a picture for him of what it looked like and how big it was. And it wasn't at all what I remember. So we only can see what we're expecting to see. So my book didn't look the way I expected it to see, and so I couldn't see it. So that's another reason we can't get through our mind, these intuitive answers. And on top of that, it's why, we can get misled and we think we're hearing a voice. It's because we've got these filters going on and these expectations, and we're only seeing it the way we're expecting it to show up. Another reason why we are misled by our mind is the theory of ontology. Have you heard that word before?
I don't think so. No.
Well, the theory of ontology has to do with how our mind works. And so you would think, logic would say that in life, what we would do is come up with an hypothesis. We would say, okay, I think that, let's say this, that people are basically kind. That's my theory. And then we would go out and collect data to see if that matches our hypotheses. And then based on that, we'd say, oh, no, I've had lots of experiences where people are not kind. Here's the evidence. Here's the data I've collected. It's not true. That's what would be logical, but that's not how our minds work. Our minds actually come up with our conclusion first. Our minds are like, we say to ourselves, the world is a great place and people are basically kind. That's our conclusion. And then we selectively pick out evidence that proves we're right.
Oh, yeah.
We don't even see evidence to the contrary. And that is, so we can't see it because it would be disproving what our belief is. So ontology says we come up with our conclusion first and selectively pick out evidence that proves we're right. And then lastly, the reason that we have difficulty with our mind is because we're all conditioned. I mean, none of us have a chance to be clear thinkers. We are all conditioned and programmed by society, by our parents, by our peers. We don't know, is our belief accurate or is it just conditioning? And it's so interesting to watch society and how different throughout the years people think. And we all think that the way we're thinking is the absolute truth, right?
Yeah.
But then they did back then too, and it was completely different. So all of this is telling us that we have to have a way to get outside of our head, outside of our mind, to access answers that are beyond this conditioning. are beyond our filter, are beyond our conclusions that we've made and selectively picking out evidence. There's been so many times, honestly, Andrea, that my higher guidance has told me things and I've argued right back with them. And I'd say, no, that's not true. Because I'm given an answer that doesn't fit my paradigm and doesn't fit my conditioning. And so I'll argue with them and say that's not true. And then I say to them, well, then show me how this is true. And then once they do, and they show me evidence of that, it's like, how could I have missed it? Like, how could I have missed that gorilla? But I did.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are lots of ways to get out of your mind. And you asked, is this different than muscle testing? How, is it similar? I am not a big fan of muscle testing, to tell you the truth. And the reason I'm not is because when I've learned it, and who knows, maybe things have changed, but when I learned it, there were all these rules. You had to check your polarity. You had to make sure, feet were on the ground. You had to, okay, I'm feeling off today. I've had too much coffee. I can't do this. There's all these things when you're working with someone to do the muscle testing that could change the way the answer comes through. And I'm not saying that there aren't incredibly skilled people that have figured out how to go beyond all that, but I'm saying that there's a simpler way, and that's through pendulum dowsing. Okay. And pendulum dowsing, you don't have to have somebody next to you. They can be across the world and you can still access them through a pendulum. Whereas muscle testing, they got to be right there. So I'm curious, have you played around with pendulum dowsing?
Yeah, a little bit. I have a little bit, but I have to tell you, I think here's my big admission. If I know that I have a method that I can utilize and I can get the truth, that scares me, because what if I don't like the truth?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. I have to just kind of take that in for a moment. That's really interesting. So yours isn't about so much whether you can trust it or not. It's that if you're given truth, now that's a huge responsibility.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Well, then I would say for that kind of experience, I would definitely start with very inconsequential things.
Okay.
When I teach people how to dowse, and by the way, dowsing isn't my only method, but I feel that dowsing with a pendulum is the fastest way to strengthen your transcendent intelligence. It will connect you like nothing else I know of. And when I first started 30 some years ago, I would never be without a pendulum, and I'd be asking questions throughout the day for all kinds of things. And that's the best way to get started and to strengthen that muscle. It really is a muscle that you have to exercise. And so, I would ask questions about everything, about what I should be eating, what I should wear for clothing, what would make me feel the best, just inconsequential things that if you make a mistake, no big deal. That's where I would start until you got really comfortable and got your feet underneath you before you start betting the family farm on it. You don't want to do that.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct. And then I have a quick question though, because can't I make that pendulum move though if I want it to move? Like if I ask something that's emotional, like I have an emotional investment in the answer, can't I change how that pendulum responds and sort of fool myself, or no?
Oh, of course you can. Of course you can. That's why I'm saying verify.
Got it. Okay.
So I think, first of all, that the combination of using pendulum dowsing and oracles which oracles are angel cards and tarot cards and all sorts of card decks. I have over 90 decks. I love them. And the reason I have so many decks is because every deck says something different. And I'm not using the deck in the traditional way. Like occasionally I'll do a 5-card spread and, the traditional ways of using it, but that's not how I typically do things. What I am doing is I'm asking for words. I'm wanting higher guidance to come down and sit beside me and talk to me. So let me give you an example. If you're dowsing and you ask the question, is this guy Mr. Right for me? Is he my soulmate? Is he my soulmate? And you get an answer, yes, he is your soulmate. And then you go, yay, I found my soulmate, and then you find out he's dating somebody else and marries them. And you're going, what the heck? I thought he was supposed to be my soulmate. What happened? Well, if you could get your higher guidance to come and sit beside you and talk to you in a conversation and say, absolutely, this person is your soulmate. And you've had many, many, many lifetimes together. But in this lifetime, there won't be much of a connection. So simply enjoy your time together and you're getting reacquainted, but move on, because this is not the person whom you are supposed to be with in this lifetime. So here's an example. That's a perfect example of how we misread what guidance is trying to tell us. So guidance says, yes, this is your soulmate. Technically, that's correct. So they gave you the answer yes when you dowsed it. But you didn't get the full story, did you? It's like, that's what we need, is a way for higher guidance to sit beside us and talk. And that's that whole verification thing. So when I use oracles, I will dowse of my 90 oracles. I will quickly dowse what oracle has the words that I need, because I want guidance to come and sit beside me and give me words. So I will dowse which oracle to pick, pull that oracle, draw the card, and then I don't read what it says in the book until I use my pendulum to identify the passage. So it might be just one paragraph or even one phrase that I need to read that is exactly the words that I need. And so perhaps it takes me to an oracle and the words come up and says, this is your soulmate through many, many lifetimes, but not this one. And you'll get those exact words. And when you get that,
Really?
Andrea, I am telling you, it is amazing. You will feel the truth of it just go through you like a wave. It will leave no doubt in your mind that you are being spoken to. This is that thing about verification. I've had many times where I've asked a question and couldn't quite understand it. So I'll ask it again and I'm led to a different oracle and I'll pull a card and then it says it in a slightly different way, but same kind of message. Then I'll go, I'm still not sure I understand it. And then they'll lead me to another oracle that will say it for a third time. So I get the fullness of it. Here's a perfect example. I'm holding this up. And when we're looking at this, we don't know exactly what this is. Thoughts are like 3-dimensional objects. So when we're just looking at it in a 2-dimensional thing, we're going, what the heck is that? And then if I turn it this way, you go, okay, I kind of get a thickness there, but what the heck is that? And then we turn it this way and, oh, we see this is a little Post-it pop-up thing. And we finally get it. So thoughts and conversation, or thoughts and concepts are very much like that. At first glance, we see it from one perspective. We go, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding it. I need a little more information. And we turn it and we turn it and we keep turning it around till we see, I get it. I get the whole concept now. So,
Yes.
now I can't remember what the original question was. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's fascinating because when you were showing that object and then you turned it that last time, I recognized it. It was something that I could wrap my mind around,
Right, right.
And I think that's what you're talking about this verification and going to the different sources.
Yes.
And the other thing that sticks out to me is, my experience as far as muscle testing or pendulums and things like that. I've always heard about yes, no questions all the time, using these yes, no questions. And that can be kind of exhausting for me to even think about is how many yes, no questions can you ask, kind of things. And your approach is very different than that. And so
Be
that's,
different.
that's, yeah,
I rarely
yeah.
ever use yes, no questions. Yes, no can be very misleading. Did you ever play when you were young, 21 questions?
Oh, yeah.
Where,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm thinking of an animal. All right, all right. Try to guess what it is. And all I can give you is yes and no. And let's say I'm thinking of an alligator. And you ask me, does it live in the water? And I go, does it? It sometimes does.
Right.
Sometimes it's on the land. What do I say? I say yes. And now you're off and running thinking about something that lives in the water. And you just got misled, right?
Right.
I
Right.
couldn't say no because technically it does live in the water sometimes. So yeah, yes, no's are very misleading. And furthermore, I'll tell you how higher, another thing is what gets people confused is they don't understand how higher guidance communicates. So you are given exactly what you need to take the next step on your path. And so yeses don't always mean yeses and nos don't always mean no. They are to get you to take the next step on your path.
Hello, it's Andrea, and in addition to being your host here at the podcast, I'm the founder of Mainstream Reiki, where bringing Reiki further into the mainstream is my mission. I offer quality Reiki classes of all levels to students attending live from around the world. And I've built a membership community as well to help Reiki people connect with each other through discussions, events, and Reiki practice. So if you're considering learning Reiki or you already have, I invite you to visit mainstreamreiki.com to discover your next step in your Reiki journey. Thank you. And now back to the show.
One of the best examples was one of my clients who had been a client for a long time and had a very troubled marriage. Her husband was an alcoholic, but never addressed it. And so their relationship was tumultuous, to say the least. So she came to me one time, and in this session, her higher guidance said, "It is time for you to leave, time for you to divorce your husband." And so we asked it in a lot of different ways. Yes, it's time for you to leave. This saddened her, but she set her resolve, went home and told her husband, "I am leaving you. We are getting a divorce." She packed up her bags and left. And that shook him to the core. And he finally checked himself into AA, got some help, and it changed his life. Then they got back together. Because, okay, so then when she came back, she goes, "My guidance said I had to get a divorce. Do I really have to go through with it? Things are changed now." And guidance came back and said, "No, you don't have to get a divorce, but you had to believe it and your husband had to believe it in order for there to be an actual change. Because all those years that they had been fighting about it never made any difference. It wasn't until she believed it and he believed it that finally there was a change. And that is what higher guidance does. Higher guidance tells you what you need to know to take the next step in life. Technically, did she have to get a divorce? No. But what did she need to hear to take the next step in her life? Yes, you need to get a divorce.
Well, yeah, because the energy needed to be there for that, right?
Right.
Because I bet she thought about it a million other times, and maybe she even threatened it before, who knows, but
Exactly.
wow,
Exactly.
that's really interesting.
So
So what that just tells me that dialogue with the that conversation that you're talking about is ongoing
yes,
because you've got to check back in
yes.
along the way.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying how valuable to strengthen this muscle is because you get that pass to backstage and you get to understand what's going on with your life experiences. So yes, you want to have that ongoing conversation. How many times do you go through life experiences and the same theme keeps showing up over and over and over, and you're going, why? What is it that guidance is trying to tell me? What is life trying to tell me here? Why do I keep attracting the same type of relationship? Why do I keep having the same experience with my friends? Why do we keep arguing about the same things over and over? What is it I need to know to make a shift? Well, when you have access to your higher guidance and you've strengthened that transcendent intelligent muscle, then you get the back end story. Here's what's going on. Here's why this keeps happening. Here's what you're wanting to know. And if you can get that message, you can finally get out of that loop. That's why it's so important to have that access to your higher guidance.
Yeah. So how do we now you mentioned the pendulum. And so how do we do this? Or can you help us understand, what comes next?
So the first thing is to start. Again, I think there's no faster way to get to and exercise that muscle than with the pendulum. So here's the mistake that a lot of people make with a pendulum. They think there's some kind of power in this pendulum in and of itself. There is not. I want you to remember these words. You are the instrument, not the pendulum. You are the
Okay.
instrument, not the pendulum. So this pendulum cannot move by itself. It can't. You are going to have to move it. And you do every time with a little muscle response here in your arm. And it's no different if you've ever learned to play the piano or any instrument. It's no different than that. When you first start playing the piano and let's say you found a song that you just love and you practice it over and over and over, what you're wanting is for that moment when it becomes not a conscious thought, but a subconscious thought. And your fingers, it's as if your fingers have a memory in them. And they just sit down to the piano keys and play it. And I remember there was a song that I loved and I played briefly when I was in grade school. And years later, I could come back to the piano and place my fingers on the keys and I would just play it. Now, if I thought to myself, what's the next key? I wouldn't know. It was out of my conscious mind. I wouldn't know. And then I would totally mess myself up. You had to rely on that unconscious memory. So when you're first learning to douse, you're in training, just like you're training yourself on a piano. You're training to make this pendulum move a certain way. Certain way for yes, certain way for no, certain indications for processing, all these different techniques that you want to bring in. And you train this muscle to move this pendulum just the way you want it. And yes, you are moving it. You are making it happen. It is not happening on its own. And you have to keep practicing that. Like, give me a yes, give me a no. And if it's not going there, make it go there because you're training that muscle until it becomes a memory in the subconscious. At that point, then the conscious mind can be thinking of questions and the unconscious mind will control the muscle here to give you the response of yes and no. It's kind of like the Huna tradition, the ancient Huna tradition says the conscious mind cannot access the higher conscious. I don't know if you know that, but the conscious mind has no direct connection to the higher conscious. The conscious mind has to go through the subconscious. The subconscious goes to the higher mind. And in reverse, the answer comes from the higher consciousness to the subconscious, which is going to move the pendulum. And then there's a perception with the conscious mind. So this is exactly where you want to be, is where the conscious mind now can focus on questions. And the subconscious has been trained with a memory how to answer yes, no, processing, maybe, all kinds of different responses. That's what you're waiting for, is that magical moment, just like with a piano, where you can just put your fingers on the keys and your fingers will just play. That's what you're looking for. But that takes time. That takes time. That is, there's some people that take to pendulum dowsing, probably because of past life experience. They take to it like a duck to water, and they just immediately are off and running. But most people aren't that way. Most people have to train themselves and train that, just like I couldn't sit down as a young child and sit down and play a piano piece. Mozart could, Beethoven could, but I could never do that. I had to train myself. And most people, and I'm certainly no Mozart, believe me, but yeah, for sure. But most people have to train themselves to use the pendulum. But anybody can do it, just like anybody can learn to play a piano piece, right? Anybody can learn how to dowse. And so by training yourself how to use a pendulum, you are exercising that connection and that muscle. That's why I say it's the most self-empowering tool and the fastest way to get to your intuitive mind and to strengthen that transcendent intelligence. So the important thing is to get familiar with it, give yourself time to train yourself, use the pendulum for all sorts of inconsequential things, like what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat for dinner? And what you're wanting is to get to that place where this is like second nature to me now. It's just so easy, comes easy. And I know that the answers I'm receiving are not things that I would have thought about, so they're seeming to come from someplace else, and that will happen.
Wow. So at the beginning, are we asking yes no questions in the beginning we are, right? To train ourselves.
To train yourself. Yeah. Just to train yourself.
I see.
But then it starts to go way beyond that. And like I said, I rarely use yes no questions. Primarily, I'm looking for percentages, degrees, and to see if this is in balance for me or not. There's all sorts of other dowsing charts to use that aren't dependent on yes and no at all. An example for percentage, let me give you this. If I were to ask higher guidance, is my hair dye harmful to my health? Well, if it is just 5% unhealthy, what does higher guidance have to give me if I'm only letting it answer yes and no? It has to give me a yes.
Right.
It's not really what I want to know. And that's why we can get misled. I want to know, is it significantly unhealthy? So I use a chart on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being extremely toxic and could cause death. Show me how toxic my hair dye is to me, to my health. And if it only comes up at 5%, I'm going to keep dyeing my hair. But if it comes up to 65%, I'm going to go, I need to find a different dye. So I might experiment and douse to see, okay, how about this one? How toxic would this one be? And what I'm looking for is for one that is quite low in toxicity, right? That's what I really want to know. And that's why left brainers are so good at this, is because they can analyze the question. The initial question is this hair dye toxic to me? But a left brainer would look at that and say, wait a minute, that's not really what you want to know. You want to know, how toxic is it? So that's an example of why I would never use the yes, no chart for a question like that. I would use the percentage chart. And again, there's all sorts of other charts that I love and teach and use that give me the specific answers, because the quality of your question will determine the quality of your answer.
Yeah. It seems like we could ask everything. I mean,
Of course you can.
I would imagine some people might really go down the rabbit hole, right? Um, is there anything you won't ask about?
No, you can ask about anything. So here's some of the rules. And I
Oh,
call it
okay.
my handy tool here. So before I get into that, when you said, is there anything that we can't ask about? When you ask about future questions, you're going to get back a best guess answer based on where you are right now. But things can always
Okay.
change.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that future questions are, the probability is mostly like this, it's going to happen this way, but things always change. Everything's fluid in the future. So just remember that. And the second rule about that is you don't douse on somebody else, for somebody else without their permission. It's kind of like the rule, like that's invading somebody else's private space. So never douse for somebody else or curiosity about someone else. Like, is so-and-so having an affair? That's none of your business. And you don't get to douse that, and so it's like you don't interfere in someone else's energy. That's just like, you just don't do that. It's like peeping through a window at night and, looking in their bedroom. You just don't do that.
Yeah. But what
So
if it's your own spouse?
you still would want to, with your spouse, ask for permission. Now your children, that's something different.
Oh,
Up to a certain age, then go ahead and douse for your children. But
mm-hmm.
when they become very self-aware and have their free will, they may not want you to. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love this. I just think it's so important.
Yeah.
When I mentioned some of my memories and people that I knew in the past, and the things that they would ask, they were not heeding
Invading.
these rules. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were not doing it very responsibly at all. So I love the fact that you address that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just plain old respect. I remember one time being at a book fair, and one of the ladies there was a psychic. And she was introducing herself to me, and she goes, "Oh, I see that this and this and this is going on, and this and this." And I never asked her to do any of that. And I felt totally invaded. It's like, get out of
Mm-hmm.
my space. I didn't invite you. You're not welcome. you know? So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And
Ethics. Yeah.
when I work with clients, I consider it pretty much like a phone call. When you hang up for a phone call, you hang up, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
now communicating with that person. So when I am working with a client and I connect to their higher guidance, when that conversation is over, I hang up that connection too. And I don't check back in. That's not that's invading their privacy. So I don't check back in to see, are they really taking their supplements? Are they really doing this and that? I don't ever do that. That's not my business. So
Yeah.
that's a very, sacred connection, and you only do it if you are given permission.
Great. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And yes, then we were going to talk about the handy tool. All right.
Yes.
So one of the most important things to know when you're using a pendulum is to let higher guidance take the lead. If you try to lead higher guidance, you're going to pigeonhole guidance into a certain answer, and that's not what you want to do. And this happens all the time. Very recently, I had a former student say that she got stuck with this. This is the perfect example of how she got stuck. A friend wanted to know why her cat was sick and what she could do for her cat. So she called up my student, knew she knew how to dowse and say, "Dowse and see what my cat needs to heal itself." And my student felt like, "No, I really don't have permission to do that. And I don't feel comfortable." And the friend said, "Why are you holding out on me? You know how to do this. Dowse, you have to. I need to know what to do. Why are you holding out on me?" And so being pressured, she came up with an answer, and then it turned out to be wrong. And so then she felt worse, right? Well, if you are taking the lead and saying, "You must answer this question" to your higher guidance, and saying, "You must answer the question about the cat, and what supplement does the cat need? What healing remedy or what herb?" And now you're pigeonholing guidance into the subject matter and the answers. It has to be A, B, or C, or D, right?
Right.
And you will often get inaccurate answers. In fact, you can sometimes get complete garbage. So the very first thing you want to do is make sure you let higher guidance take the lead. And one of the questions that you could ask is, do you want to answer, do you have an opinion about what herb might be helpful for this cat, or what remedy, healing remedy might be helpful for this cat? And if higher guidance comes back and says, "No, I have no opinion," then stop right there.
Wow.
Just like there's but then higher guidance might come back again. If you let higher guidance take the lead, higher guidance might come back and say, "I have no opinion about that, but I have something to tell you about how the owner it needs to handle this situation." So you might get information about what's really important. And there's a lot of times when I'm working with clients, I always tell a brand new client this, is that they may write to me questions of what they want their higher guidance to answer. But I will always say that I can't guarantee that higher guidance is going to answer any of these questions. But what I can say is that you will be told exactly what you need to hear to take the next step in life. And guidance might come back and say, "You think these things are important, but let me tell you what's really important here." So it's it's imperative that you let higher guidance take the lead wherever that is to go, rather than saying, "You must answer this question about this subject and give me A, B, C, or D." That's taking the lead and making higher guidance answer a question that maybe it doesn't want to and has no opinion about. And you truly get garbage answers. Garbage answers.
Wow. Yeah. What do you think is one of the most common things that people want to know about, that this technique can help them?
There isn't any thing that is off limits here. Best place to live, best practitioner to go see, best diet to be on, best this, best that, you could be anything. So what you want to do, let's go to the handy tool here.
Okay.
Your first finger is the thumb. Start with the broadest question possible. Okay. That's your broadest finger. Start with the broadest question possible. So the first broadest question is do you have an opinion about this? One time my son was looking through his Amazon wish list of audible books, and he was wanting to see which one, he was trying to dowse to see which one he should listen to next. And he kept getting no on everything. And I was watching him as he was getting kind of frustrated. I said, "Wait a minute, did you ask the broadest question? The broadest question is there a book I have on my wish list that you want me to listen to?" That's the broadest question, right? And the answer is no. So he had to go to a completely different, he had to go to Amazon to figure out which book he should download. So that's an example. Start with the broadest question. Then next is your pointer finger. You want to get pointed in the right direction. So, let's see. Let's use the example of the cat. All right.
Okay.
So the broad question is do you have an opinion? Is there something you'd like to share with me about what would be a good healing modality for this cat? And guidance says yes. All right. Now let's get pointed in the right direction. Is it an herbal remedy? Is it a nutritional remedy? Is it a homeopathic? You get pointed in the right direction, right? So let's say you get pointed in the direction that it is a herbal remedy that this cat needs to help heal itself. Okay. Then next you want to, the middle finger is right in the middle here. It can go this way and it can go this way. So this is a way to make sure that you don't have any assumptions. You ask it in the positive and you ask it in the negative. So an example would be, is it true this cat needs a herbal remedy as the first line, to help it to heal? Yes, that's true. Then you could ask the question, is it not true that this cat needs an herbal remedy? And you should get a no. All right. If you don't get a no, there's an assumption there that you need to pay attention to. So it could be that what your guidance is wanting to say is not just an herbal remedy. You have to do an herbal remedy in combination with something. So your guidance is trying to say, that's true. You need an herbal remedy, but that's not all. And so by asking it in both the positive and the negative, you can get more information. Now, let's say you've gotten to that point where now I understand this cat needs an herbal remedy along with, I'm just going to say raw cat food. All right. That's the combination. Now you come to the relationship finger. This is the finger that the most important thing about in a relationship is that you understand each other. Because if your partner is telling you one thing and you have a different idea of what they said, you're not understanding each other. So your partner needs to say, what did you think I said? And you need to repeat back. Okay, if I understand correctly, this is what you meant. And he'll either say yes or no, right? So it's very important that you make sure and verify you've understood. So here on a scale of 1 to 100, how well do I understand what guidance is trying to tell me about what this cat needs as a healing remedy? If you get 100%, you got it. Okay. You got that. Yes, this cat needs an herbal remedy, and maybe you've even identified what it is. This herbal remedy along with some raw cat food. Okay. Got it. Now we come to the little finger. Is there any little bit more that I need to know? And so there's a handy tool about how to ask good questions, and because if you don't ask good questions, you will get misled.
I love that. I love the handy tool because that was so clear, and it's a little bit of a roadmap, really, to for any kind of question.
Oh,
and it made sense.
Yeah, there's been so many times when I've gotten confusing answers with my dowsing, and then I know that I'm just not asking the right question. Like guidance is trying to do its very best to explain to me what's going on. I remember one time having a client that had some heart issues, and guidance said that it had to do with the food he was eating. So I went through and I dowsed. Is it a protein? No. Is it a carbohydrate? No. Is it a fat? No. I'm going, well, but it's a food. Yes. Okay. Well, let's try this again. Is it a protein? Is it a carbohydrate? It is fat. No. Okay. Is it a chemical? Is it a food additive? And I started exploring all kinds of things. Now, if I wasn't a seasoned dowser, I would say, this is just not working. I'm getting stupid answers. It can't be both. It's obviously I'm not on target today. And I would have thrown the pendulum across the room. But but I knew guidance was trying to tell me something. So here's where we go with this assumption. There was an assumption I was making in there that it was a food. Turns out, Andrea, it was any food that he cooked in the microwave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that.
No. And
I would
see,
have
that's
never come up with that.
no. So that's where asking the right question. And so when I finally asked, is it about how it's prepared? Yes. I asked the right question. Yeah. So then I knew. Yeah.
Yeah, that's remarkable and so helpful, I think. When you share these stories and these examples, the light bulb goes off for me,
Right.
and I'm sure those listening to this too, because you really bring it into real life, and anybody who's tried with a pendulum before, I think, can so relate to this, and the throwing it across the room, because, I've probably done that, with the little bit that I've done.
Right.
So what you've done here is really open my eyes, to a better way,
Yeah.
a more intelligent way of not only looking at the pendulum. I love how you explained the pendulum isn't moving itself. You are doing it, which I think so many people, they believe perhaps that they shouldn't be moving it. It's like, it's
Mhm.
only working if I have no influence
Right.
whatsoever and
Right.
it's moving by
Yeah.
itself. And I love that you just turned that right upside down, but you explained it. So of course it makes sense. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I just
It's
love how you explain things.
for those people that think that it only works if they're not influencing it. I suggest that they hang it, on some kind of a brace or something going across, and just hang it there, and without touching it, and then see if it moves for them. It won't. They are moving it, period.
Yes.
And even
But
if they don't think that they are, they are. They are.
yeah,
It's such a slight, and it's no different than handwriting. Some people have really flamboyant handwriting, and they're all over the place, And some people, their hand, this tiny, tiny, tiny letters. It's no different. Some people have just a very tiny, tiny response, and some people are out there swinging it like crazy, and you're going, you're making it move. It's so obvious. And the answer is, of course I'm making it move. There's no other way it does.
yeah. And it's not a bad thing,
No,
that's the
it's
way
the
it's
way,
supposed to
yeah,
be.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jean, this has just been awesome. I'm so happy that you rejoined us here on the show. And for people who want to get in touch with you, or perhaps you have one little extra thing you would like to add to the conversation, I would love for you to do that if you're being guided to. But we want to know also how to contact you for more information about your work.
Wonderful. You can go to my website. It's creativemystic.com. You can also use my name, jeanslatter.com. And Jean Slatter is spelled Jean, S as in Sam, Latter.com. Either one will get you there. And I have courses on dowsing, on how to raise your TQ, because there's so much more to it. But the one thing that I would say to the listeners is that it is so worth your time and energy and effort to learn how to raise your TQ. There is nothing else like it. I mean, I just had a conversation this morning with a good friend that said it's been amazing to see how she got a theme of what she's working on for this year. And she said, it's amazing to see how the universe is dropping these breadcrumbs all along the way, all relating back to the theme for her year. And it makes life magical. It does. It moves you into this place of magic and serendipity, and you're watching the orchestration of your life, and you understand that your life isn't a random series of events that have no meaning, but instead there is purpose behind what you're experiencing. And there's something that you're wanting to know the truth of. And that moves you into this place of magic where you seem to get these winks, all the time from the universe saying, you see, I told you, and it's fun. And it moves you into this place not only of transcendent intelligence, but transcendent joy. And that's very different than just always smiling and giggling and laughing. It's a deep joy of satisfaction that you understand your life and that you're growing and evolving. And so it is so worth your time and effort to learn how to raise your TQ and get out of your mind, this limited, filtered mind, and start accessing a greater awareness of who you truly are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, I love it. And I think so many people yearn for that.
Yeah.
Yearn for that connection. And I love how you said that, because seeing life not as random events that are disconnected, but all in alignment with your purpose and, why you're here. And gosh, thanks so much, Jean. It's just been fantastic. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Andrea, for having me back. And anytime I'll be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to get my calendar out as soon as we're off. Thank you. And from myself and the team here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, we'd like to say thank you to our listeners for all of your support, including leaving great reviews, becoming BTRG insiders, and sharing this show with your friends and family. Drop us a line at info@beyondthereikigateway.com anytime. Tell us what's on your mind and take great care. Until next time. Thank you again for joining me. Please check the description underneath this video to learn more, connect with us, and get some important information about your listening experience. Wishing you all the best until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.